As President Biden halts the Keystone XL pipeline and stops oil and gas leasing on federal lands, Republican critics say the president is waging a war on energy and costing Montana and other states thousands of jobs and millions in tax revenue. But what are the actual impacts in Montana? Tonight, MTN's Mike Dennison takes a closer look.
Make no mistake, canceling the Keystone XL pipeline will cost Montana some construction jobs and tax revenue.
People have been laid off, and a tremendous amount of money spent on pipe manufactured in the United States that now has no place to go. There's been a tremendous amount of investment that has gone into this project.
Canadian pipeline developer TC Energy, based in Calgary, says it's laying off 1,000 people, but hasn't said how many are in the U.S. or Montana. Yet environmental review documents and company information give us a good look at the impacts in Montana. The underground pipeline would traverse 285 miles of northeast Montana from the Port of Morgan to the South Dakota border near Ekalaka. Between 800 and 1,000 workers would be in Montana during the construction phase for anywhere from 9 to 27 months. Many of those workers would be in man camps near Hinsdale, Circle, and Baker. But only 10 to 15% of those workers would be hired locally. And just a handful of local jobs would be needed to maintain the completed pipeline. The lasting revenue impact in Montana, however, would be property taxes paid by TC Energy. According to the environmental study of the pipeline, $63 million a year in the 6 counties along the pipeline route. That money would be divided among the state treasury, local schools, and local governments. Macomb County Commissioner Jim Mose says schools, roads, and other infrastructure in his rural county could certainly use the boost. And the pipeline also would have a terminal near Baker that Montana and North Dakota oil producers could use to transport their product southbound.
The more options we have, the better price that we can get for Montana crude. Anytime we can do something to increase the value of Montana crude oil, everybody in Montana benefits.
But as you can imagine, not everyone agrees that Keystone is a net economic gain for Montana. Whitney Tawney of Montana Conservation Voters says boosting oil development is not a path to prosperity for most of Montana.
They should be taking actions to protect our climate, our environment, our water, our public lands. Our economy here in Montana is largely driven by that outdoor recreation economy.
And tribes on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation say the pipeline threatens their water supply and that its workforce could be a health threat. Lance Forstar of the Assiniboine Council says at a pipeline work area last spring, he saw numerous people not wearing masks or taking precautions against COVID-19. Forstar believes long-term impacts of the pipeline and oil development will override any financial benefits for the region.
And we look at the big picture, and we look at that carbon dioxide emission content in Earth's atmosphere. I just don't see how people would choose money. And anybody that just thinks that it's okay to come into our area and work on this pipeline to put food on their table, they're not thinking about the drinking water on our table.
As long as Joe Biden is president, it looks like Keystone XL is done for. Next week, we'll look at Biden's moratorium on oil and gas leasing on federal lands and what that means for Montana. In Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Now, the Keystone XL pipeline would primarily transport crude oil from Canada's tar sands in northern Alberta.